Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are you guys doing today? Good. So, in the usual fashion, what I'll talk about today is I'll talk a little bit about the economic trends in Kern County. And given that this is the 2020 Economic Summit, I'll look at where we've come from 1990 to 2000, 2010 to 2020, see how the economy is doing, and then talk a little bit about some of the current research that we're doing at CSUB and some of the current issues that are affecting Bakersfield, okay? So I hope you'll take something home out of all this. That's usually my goal. Okay, so what's the population of Kern County? What do you guys think? It's right there, right? 897,764. Can you imagine that's in 2019? In 1990, we were at 596,000. So we've only added 300,000 people between 1990 and 2019, right? That graph, the other thing that graph does is that it shows how Kern County's population is growing and how California's population is growing. So one axis is measuring California, the other axis is measuring Kern County. But the blue line, which is Kern County, is a little bit steeper. So it means there are a lot more people who are here in Kern County compared to what's going on in California, okay? So population has been growing. So let's do this. Let's break down the decades, 1990 to 2000, 2000, 2010, blah, 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 all those 4 decades, and then let's look at how much growth has been taking place in population, okay? That's what the next slide does. And it compares 2 regions, Kern County and California. Look at the 80s to the 90s. 36% increase in population in Kern County compared to 23 in California. In the 90s, it went up by 20%, while California has only increased by 12%. And 2000, 2010, we grew up by like 27%. That's almost 2.5 times the population growth in California. And then the last decade, numbers are still the same. Now remember, population growth depends on a number of things. It depends on birth rate, death rate, and it depends on migration patterns. Okay, so people leave, people come, all those things affect these numbers. And right now, California's population is about 39 million. In 1990, that population was about 29 million. So they added 10 years. While they added 10 years, we added 300,000 people, okay? So let's move on to something else. Let's talk about industries. A lot of people say ag, oil, Kern County, we need to diversify, but let's see what these numbers actually mean. So what that graph has is they're little charts. There's the blue, orange, and black, and the blue actually has the population, or rather the contribution of an industry to total GDP here in Kern County. So the blues talk about what was happening in 2001. So ag, for example, contributed to 3% of GDP in Kern County in 2001. In 2010, the number went up to 17%, and then went up to down to 12%, and then 5%. And then you have others, okay? Look at the mining, quarrying, oil extraction. You can see that those numbers have actually went up. In fact, in 2010, the number was about 27%, and now we're seeing a lesser contribution of the oil industry in the economy for Kern County. Now, when people talk about diversifying, what we'd like to see is we'd like to see all those bars up, and we'd like to see more categories. We'd like to see construction, we'd like to see manufacturing, we'd like to see entertainment, real estate. We want to see more of those. In fact, Madison, Wisconsin has a very diversified economy, okay? Nevada is doing a really great job at doing this. So when people talk about diversification, these are the things that we try to see happen. Are you guys okay so far? Good, you can tell someone something today. Let's look at employment by sector. Same thing. Let's look at the number of people employed in the farm sector, mining and logging, construction, manufacturing, and healthcare. You look at the farm. It was 13% in the 90s, and then it went up to 21% in 2000, 19%, and 27%. So the farm sector is employing more workers as we move through the decades. Mining and logging, 5, 4, 4, 5. You can see what those numbers are. Construction is right around there. Manufacturing is right around there. Healthcare. Ladies and gentlemen, healthcare has added almost 10% the number of workers. It went from 6% of the total workers in Kern County to 16% in 2018. So we're seeing an increased contribution from the healthcare industry. And then there's always others, okay? Others, there are very many things that are happening there. Unemployment, similar story. Our unemployment has always been higher than California's. okay? So you have the unemployment in Kern County and the unemployment in California. And as of 2019, we're looking at 4% unemployment rate, but in California, we're looking at 7.2%, but in California, the number is about 4%, okay? So those are some of the numbers. Now, it's always important to understand a community that you're dealing with. Look at the numbers, and then once you look at the numbers, then you can do some economic analysis on all that. So I really wanted to throw some of these statistics at you guys. Then we can move on to what we have here. I also decided, you know what? Let's look at the number of passengers who are coming into Bakersfield Airport. Bakersfield Airport is awesome, right? I mean, there's nothing better than going, people come in and they say your airport is smaller than the rest, and I'm like, this is the best thing. You walk in, before you even know what's going on, you see it right there, and you're in the gate, and you're gone. Nice. You don't want to push people around and do all that. But let's look at this. What these numbers have here, what we're looking at is we're looking at the number of passengers, the average number of passengers every December between 2008 to 2019. That's about 12,000 passengers in December of 2019. That's like CSUB, population of CSUB that has passed through that. But I also read that we're seeing an increase in the number of flights. I think they're putting a flight through, where's the flight that they're adding? Talking about Seattle. That'll be awesome, right? Right, so we're seeing good things happen here. Okay, so takeaways. Takeaways, current population has grown faster than California's. Our unemployment rate is consistently higher. We're seeing an increased contribution from agriculture to GDP. There's an uptick in farm employment from 13% to 27% of the employees. Oil and gas, we're seeing a declining contribution of that industry. And finally, healthcare has seen employment increase from 6 to 16%. Let's move on to something else. So now, there are 3 questions here, and I'll put it this way. Do oil prices affect the housing values in Kern County? They probably should, right? And that's the question we ask. First question we ask is, and this is a paper Dr. Gerhardt and I have worked on for a couple of years, and the main thing we ask is this: when oil prices change, how does that affect the housing market in Kern County? And if something is to happen, are there any spillover shocks to neighboring counties, right? We have 8 neighboring counties, so if the oil price changes the housing market here in Kern County, how does that spill over to neighboring counties? And if things happen there, do they come and affect us, right? Because look at it this way: if homes are much, much cheaper here compared to a neighboring county, then that could have an impact, right? There's a boundary, there's an administrative boundary, but usually some of those things are not very, someone who's buying a house will not say that, I'll make a very big decision based on having, traveled 5 miles away. Anyway, so we do that, and the main thing we ask is, how do these changes affect? Let's keep it moving. So the main thing is this. Now, we're looking at how the energy industry affects home values, but there are very many transmissions through which oil prices can affect the home values. First, if oil prices go up and an economy is benefiting from that, people have more money, they have more disposable income they can spend on homes. Secondly, the construction industry, if oil prices are lower, they can probably, lower costs of construction and homes can be a little bit cheaper. If someone is investing in the oil industry or in the housing market, and for example, the oil industry is doing really well, then they can take some of this money from here and put it in this other market, right? So there's all these channels through which energy prices can affect home values. So we did this study, long study, very many fantastic findings. And the one thing that we did first is we kind of put up a map there just to tell audiences, because we usually do these things out there and try and explain who Kern County is and what we have. Well, if you produce 4 barrels of oil in California, we know 3 are going to come from Kern County. That's the first thing, right? Second thing is the top 10 taxpayers in Kern County are oil companies. That we know. Of course, the industry employs a lot of people, and the housing market is quite affordable. That map right there has different colors. Red means expensive, light red means less expensive, okay? And that circle right there is where Kern County is. And you can see there's a cluster of counties there where, not very dark as opposed to the others. So we then said, let's look at the housing price index. The housing price index shows prices of houses, okay? And let's also track oil prices. And let's look at that index for 3 regions: US, California, and Kern County, okay? And the green lines right there show periods when we had the recession. You'll find that oil prices tend to move together with housing prices. And right around the recession, you saw there was a drop in everything, and things have started to pick up that way. Looking at the long-run coefficients, a 1% increase in oil prices increases home values by 0.4% in Kern County. Okay, 0.4% if the median price of a house is about $250,000, 0.4% we're looking at $1,000. Okay, those were the estimates that we found in the long run. Second, if you increase interest rates by 1%, then you're going to decrease home values by about 0.82%. And then third, a 1% increase in unemployment will lower home values by 2%. No short-run causality was detected, meaning when you have short-term changes in oil prices, that doesn't affect the home values, okay? So that's what we found, and this is what we have in our study, which is out there. Okay, let's move on to the other side. Side effects, or rather the spillover effects. Spillover effects. The most spillover effects usually come from Los Angeles County, or they come from Ventura and San Bernardino. The other 5 counties that surround us don't have very much of an impact on our housing market, okay? So if you go look for the paper, it has much more information. It has what's happening from Kern County going outwards, which is really small, and then what's coming inwards like that, okay? Are you guys good so far? Yes, good, fantastic. All right, now I have a question, and you guys can share this. Where do we have the largest consumer traffic in Bakersfield? In the last month of December, or rather, let's look at December. Where do we have the most people go in Bakersfield? You guys are like, what type of question is that? Think of places where you go and there's just many people all the time. Okay, there's a Walmart here. It starts with Shaw and ends with Ping places. Yeah, where? Like location? Valley Plaza, here, somewhere here. Valley Plaza, thank you, Sumita. Valley Plaza Mall. Most people, right? Yes. There's a company that collected cell phone data, and it was tracking where the most number of people go in a month. And Valley Plaza Mall had the largest number of people. Where do you think is number 2? Targets? There are many Targets. But where? Northwest Promenade, thank you. Number 2, Northwest Promenade. Number 3, guesses? Stockdale Marketplace is about number 4, right? Actually, number 2 is Gosford Village. Look, let's look at this. So these are the number of shopping centers, and these are the monthly visits. And this is the month of December. So number 1, Valley Plaza, Gosford Village, Northwest Promenade. The Marketplace is number 4. The shops at Riverwalk, number 5. And then East Hills Mall, or East Hills Plaza, is number 6, and Stockdale Plaza is number 7. Stockdale Plaza is that place where there's Chick-fil-A and all that stuff, right? And then Gosford Village is somewhere on Gosford Lane, right? Yeah. Made it easy for me, right? So that's what it is. Now, let's talk about something more interesting. Let's talk about food. What about restaurants or places to buy food? Where do you guys think you'd find the most people in Bakersfield collective? Chick-fil-A, who read my slides? Chick-fil-A is number 1. What do you think number 2? In-N-Out, yes. Number 3? Starbucks, there are many Starbucks. Where else do you guys think? But you guys are killing it with this. My work is half done. Let's look at this here. So Chick-fil-A, number 1. Okay, number 2, In-N-Out. Number 3, Olive Garden. 4, In-N-Out. 5, BJ's. 6, Blaze Pizza. And number 7, there's a McDonald's on 178 that had 36,800 people. The month of December, right? These are the numbers that we collected. Actually, anyway, every time I look at this slide, I just get hungry. So I'm just going to keep it moving, okay? Let's talk a little bit about the retail industry, and let's talk about malls, okay? Now, there was a report that was put out by Credit Suisse that said 1 in every 4 malls is to close by 2022. That's close. Macy's, as we know, is closing about 125 stores over the next 3 years. Sears, we know that we lost a Sears here in Valley Plaza Mall, right? Payless Shoe Store, or Shoe Source, has closed about 2,100. Gymboree and Charlotte Russe, 500 apiece. And Sbarro, that pizza spot at the mall, right? In 2014, filed for bankruptcy and closed that. Let's look at what's happening here in Bakersfield. What stores have we lost? We lost 2 Payless shoe stores. Sears left, Charlotte Russe, and Gymboree, and those ones out there in Tejon Outlet. Now, so there has been something happening with malls, the retail industry. Malls are closing. That part I think we know, right? But why are malls closing? People like to say online. Online is correct, but that's a very small reason why. 12.8% of the sales, of retail sales, only came from online stores. So it is a reason, but it's not the main reason. I think some of us still like going somewhere, you try something. Those things never come. I don't know about you guys, but I've never ordered anything and it fit and looked the way it was. It's a mess. Send it back, go there, or send it 3 times, and it's just a disaster. Well, if it happens for you, you're lucky. I mean, thank the stars. But anyway, so we're talking about malls here. We're back to malls, okay? So we said retail. What else do you guys think? Income inequality, okay? We have a widening income gap, okay? Now, those at this part of the income group are still, servicing or working with the good malls, right? Quote unquote, or the high-performing malls. Also, this group of folks is not spending as much money as they used to, okay? So what we're seeing with the mall closures are we're having the mid to lower end stores closing. So that's another reason. Also, big box stores are seeing a lot in terms of increase in terms of sales. Okay, and these are things that are happening here. If you look at the numbers, you look at Sam's Club, you look at Costco, their sales are going up there, right? And Amazon is also going up, but it's not as high as that. So people are still spending money, they're just not spending it at the mall, or if they're spending it at the mall, it's the high-end malls. Finally, there's an increase in supply. There's an oversupply of malls. If you want to go to buy a shirt, there's so many places you don't even know where to start. It's just confusion. Okay, finally, what can we do with successful malls? Or rather, what are malls doing now to make them successful? Now, when a big store like Sears leaves, it leaves a gaping hole in the mall, right? And remember, when people come in to shop at Sears or these big stores, they come in hordes, and then there's spillover effects to those neighboring stores. So when you take these things out, that has effects on these other malls. So what are malls doing now to take care or to fill that gap? Well, there are many things. Some are putting in theme parks, yoga studios, breweries. Actually, when I did this thing, breweries was the thing that showed up at the front like this. And I was like, I can't be doing this. These guys, I talked about breweries, they'll just be like, this guy just likes talking about beer. But it's okay, beer is good. Churches, medical clinics, apartments, event spaces. We're seeing car showrooms, so many things. So malls, what they're doing is they're creating places for education and entertainment or for people to socialize. And then they're now taking that and mixing with whatever else is going out there. So that's what some of the most successful malls are doing today. Even gyms. Okay, so let's move on to the last thing here. Now going forward, and this is what I want us to end, I want to end on something called creative destruction. And you guys are like, creative destruction, what is wrong with you? It's like saying up and down, right? Well, creative destruction is a phenomenon where the creation or the creation of something that's technologically more advanced comes in and it replaces other commodities. You guys know what I'm talking about here, right? The cell phone, I don't have my cell phone, but you know how the cell phone has come in and it has taken the part of very, very many commodities. By definition, don't worry, you don't have to read this, I explained what it is, but this is something that was put out by Joseph Schumpeter, and the main thing we're talking about is that this process of capitalism incessantly revolutionizes the economic structure from within by destroying the old one and creating a new one, okay? So as folks, and as in the economy, we need to really think about creative destruction. We really need to listen to what people are doing. So what are examples of things that have actually come in and replaced other things, apart from the cell phone? Uber, good. Netflix, right? Actually, this slide here tells it. Netflix, right? I don't know how many of us pay for, people now are like, oh, you know what? I don't pay for cable, but I pay for Netflix, this, and my bill is probably higher than what I used to pay, right? So it's happening. The second thing is this. Look at that. Domino's has now put in a pizza tracker. You guys know this thing? It's amazing. You go in and you order, and then it tells you, oh, your pizza is being put in the oven, oh, your pizza has been done this, and your pizza is... every time I look at this thing, I'm like, wow, I just go order a pizza. But the main thing is they've been able to overtake their competitors just because of that tracker. There are many articles as to how accurate that tracker is. There's a guy who decided to sit there and tell his girlfriend to go home and sit home, and then he said, okay, I'm going to track. Okay, they put it in the oven, and they did this, and they did this, and they did this. But it's a very innovative way to work with folks. Turo, you guys heard of Turo? Right, it's kind of an Airbnb for cars. If you're going out on holiday, you can rent out your car. I can have someone live in my car, and I can rent out my car. Tillable is probably an Airbnb for farmland. If you have extra farmland, if you have a farmer, E-I-E-I-O, I want to say that. If you have a farmer who has extra land, you can lease that out, and Tillable is an awesome app. I was looking at that this morning. The Crockpot, the Instapot. You guys know the Instapot? Man, people who have an Instapot will not let you breathe. You will know that that thing is the best. They're like CrossFit folks. They'll tell you this is the best thing. But the Instapot has pretty much taken over what's going on there. You have Instacart where you can order things online, and Airbnb, we know that. In the energy industry, we're also seeing a lot of creative destruction. Back then, we used to produce electricity from water, but we're now moved to things like coal, and coal has now been replaced by natural gas. We can see electric cars there. We know with electric cars, each time, if I was to buy an electric car, then my likelihood of buying petroleum or gasoline for my lifetime is, very diminished. Anyway, so that's what I want us to think. Creative destruction is something that happens, right? Most of these folks listen to consumers, and they make changes based on what people want. And as we go forward, this is something that we'd like to embrace. We need to diversify our economy, but we also need to understand that such concepts or such things like creative destruction in energy happen. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.